Today our topic is the front of the forearm. Like arm, the front of the forearm, here the muscle is arranged in two layers. One is superficial layer and one is deep layer. In the superficial layer there are 5 muscles, and in the deep layer there are 3 muscles. So together 8 muscles are in the front of the forearm. So what are the muscles, vessels and nerves in the front of the forearm? So you already told the muscles, there are 8 in numbers. So superficially there are 5 muscles, and in the deep layer there are 3 muscles, together 8 muscles. And the arteries, the main 2 arteries, these are the radial artery and ulnar artery, and we know these 2 arteries are the terminal branches of the brachial artery. And you can see there are 3 nerves in the front of the forearm. These are the median nerve, ulnar nerve and radial nerve. Okay, now let's move forwards. Now let's move to the superficial group. In the superficial group there are 5 muscles, and their names are from lateral to medial: Pronator teres, Flexor carpi radialis, then Palmaris longus, Flexor digitorum superficialis and Flexor carpi ulnaris. Okay, so these muscles are located in the front of the forearm and they are arranged from lateral to medial. Now this is the view of the front of the forearm. In the superficial layer we can see the 5 muscles. So this is the Pronator teres, then this is the Flexor carpi radialis muscle, then this is the Palmaris longus. Look at that, the tendon of this muscle is so much longer, so that's why the name is Palmaris longus. And the next muscle is Flexor digitorum superficialis. Look at that, the muscle is bulkier because it have to give the tendon for the insertion into the 4 digits. So the muscle is little bulkier than the other muscles. And the last one, the most medial muscle, is the Flexor carpi ulnaris. So from lateral to medial the muscles are Flexor carpi radialis, Pronator teres, then Flexor carpi radialis, then Palmaris longus, then Flexor digitorum superficialis, and then Flexor carpi ulnaris. Okay, now let's move to our first muscle, that is the Pronator teres. Okay, so where it is originated from? Look at that, it is originated from the superficial. It has 2 heads, okay, humeral head and ulnar head. That means it get originated by 2 heads. The humeral head gets originated from the medial epicondyle of the humerus. We know in the medial epicondyle of the humerus there is an area that is called common flexor origins. So the muscle get originate from that part, and from the ulnar head it originate from the medial margin of the coronoid process of the ulna, and then it is inserted on the medial 1/3 of the lateral surface of the radius. Okay, so it is originating from the humeral part, from the ulnar part, and ultimately inserting on the lateral surface of the radius, middle 1/3 of the lateral surface of the radius. And one interesting thing, that between the 2 head, okay, between the humeral head and ulnar head of the Pronator teres, so in between the humeral head and ulnar head of the Pronator teres, one important structure passes through, that is the median nerve. Okay, so if we look in between the 2 head of this Pronator teres, we will find the median nerve. Okay, so we will see this in the cadaver. Then what is the nerve supply of this muscle? The nerve supply of the muscles of the front of the forearm is median nerve. All the muscles are supplied by median nerve in the front of the forearm, except two muscles. The exceptions are two muscles. These are the flexor digitorum profundus and flexor carpi ulnaris. These two muscles are supplied by ulnar nerve. And there is one very important characteristics of the flexor digitorum profundus, because it is the only one nerve, one muscle that in the forearm that has the dual nerve supply. And the flexor digitorum profundus is supplied by the median nerve as well as the ulnar nerve also. Its median part is supplied by the ulnar nerve and lateral part is supplied by the median nerve. So all the muscles of the front of the forearm supplied by the median nerve except two muscles. These two muscles are the flexor digitorum profundus and flexor carpi ulnaris. These two are supplied by the ulnar nerve. Okay. So then move to our next muscle. One important thing, we forgot to tell the function of the pronator teres. The function of the pronator teres is the flexions of the elbow joint. Okay, the flexions of the elbow joint, and as well as its main function is the pronation of the forearm. Okay, so its main function is, you can say, the pronation, as its name is Pronator teres, so its function will be according to the name. So its function is the pronation of the forearm. So number one is the pronation, and number two, in some extent, it helps in the flexion of the elbow joint, because it arches over the elbow joint. So our next muscle is flexor. Now we will talk about the flexor carpi radialis muscle. This muscle, it is originated from the medial epicondyle of the humerus by a common flexor origin. Okay, so you can say in a short that all the flexor muscles of the forearm, most of the flexor muscles of the forearm, they take origin from the common flexor origin, which is located at the medial epicondyle of the forearm. Then after originating, it is inserted over the bases of the second and third metacarpal bones. And look at that, this muscle rests or lies over the radius bone. So that's why its name is flexor carpi radialis. That means it remains in the flexor surface or anterior surface of the forearm. It is inserted in the carpal bone, actually the metacarpal bone it is inserted, and radialis, that means it rests or lies over the radius bone. So that's why its name is flexor carpi radialis. And then what is the nerve supply? Simply the median nerve. And what will be the action of this flexor carpi radialis? Look at that, the name is flexor. Okay, so it will definitely do flexions of which joint? Okay, look at that, it is arching over the wrist joint, so it will do. So the function of the flexor carpi radialis is flexion of the wrist joint. Now our next muscle is the palmaris longus. Palmaris longus, its tendon is long, and by seeing it, the longer tendon, you can easily identify this muscle. So let's see where it is originated and where it is inserted. The palmaris longus, this one is the palmaris longus. Okay, it is originating from the common flexor origin that is located at the medial epicondyle of the humerus and inserting on the apex of the palmar aponeurosis. Okay, and nerve supply is same as that is a median nerve, and action, look at that, it arches over the wrist joint. It arches over the wrist joint. So definitely it will cause us flexion of the wrist joint because it is located at the flexor compartment and it goes over the wrist joint. So the function of the palmaris longus is the flexion of the wrist joint also. So our next muscle is flexor digitorum superficialis. Okay, the digitorum means the four medial digits. Okay, so let's look at this muscle, where it is originated from. It has three sides that it get originate from. One is the common thing, that is the medial epicondyle of the humerus, common flexor origin. The number 2 is the medial collateral ligament, and number 3 is the medial margin of the coronoid process of the ulna, and number 4 is the anterior oblique line that is located on the radius bone. Now, where it is inserted, the flexor digitorum superficialis, it is inserted on the medial phalanges of the medial forefingers. Okay. So the flexor digitorum superficialis, look at that, they are inserted in the medial phalanx of the medial forefingers. That means except thumb. So their mode of insertion is quite peculiar and very complicated, so we should know it very clearly. So before insertion, the flexor digitorum superficialis muscles, they are divided into two layers. One is the superficial layer and another one is the deep layer. Okay, so before insertion they are arranged into or divided into two layers. One is the superficial layer and another one is the deep layer. This superficial layer, they are inserted on the middle phalanx of the middle finger and ring finger. That means these two fingers. And the deep layer, they are inserted on the middle phalanges of the index finger and the little finger. And look at that, just before insertion they split into two parts. Okay, look at that, just before insertion on the middle phalanges they are splitted into two parts, and then they are inserted on the base of the middle phalanges of the four middle fingers. Okay, so that's the peculiarity. So let's read it from the book. Look at that, they are inserted on the middle phalanges of the medial forefingers. The mode of insertion is as follows. The muscle splits into two layers, superficial and deep, and the superficial layer. So then the superficial layer, it forms two tendons which are inserted into the middle phalanges of the middle and ring fingers, and the deep layer also forms two tendons which are inserted in the middle phalanges of the index and little finger. And before insertion, each of the tendon, they are split into two layers, and then ultimately they are inserted on the middle phalanges of the medial four fingers. And now the nerve supply. The nerve supply is same as before. It is supplied by the median nerve. And what will be the action? Okay, look at that. It is arching over the wrist joint as well as the proximal interphalangeal joint. Okay, so it is arching over the wrist joint as well as the proximal interphalangeal joint. So it will causes flexion of the wrist joint and flexion of the proximal interphalangeal joint, that is PIP joint, simultaneously. Our last muscle is the flexor carpi ulnaris, which lies most medially. It arises from the two head. Okay, one is humeral and another one is ulnar head. The humeral head is the medial epicondyle of the humerus, the common flexor origin, and the ulnar head is the medial margin of the olecranon process and upper two-thirds of the posterior border of the ulna. And they are inserted on the pisiform bone, on the carpal bones mainly. One is the pisiform bone, then hook of the hamate, okay, and the base of the fifth metacarpal bone. So what is the nerve supply? The flexor carpi ulnaris, we know this is the exception. This is supplied by the ulnar nerve. And what will be the action? As it arches over the wrist joint, so it will definitely causes flexion of the wrist joint. Forearm, we know there are three muscles: the flexor pollicis longus, which is located laterally, flexor digitorum profundus located medially, and the pronator quadratus, it is placed distally, that means near the wrist joint. Now let's see the flexor digitorum profundus. Okay, so this is the flexor digitorum profundus, which lies medially. So look at that, where it is originating from the, it is originating from the medial side of the olecranon and coronoid process of the ulna. Number 2, it is also originating from the upper 3/4 of the anterior surface and medial surface of the shaft of the ulna. And number 3, it is also arising from the upper 3/4 of the posterior border of the ulna. And they are inserted in the bases of the distal phalanx. Okay, look at that. The name is Flexor digitorum profundus. Profundus means the deep. Digitorum means it will be inserted in the medial 4 fingers. And the flexor means it will be located in the flexor compartment or anterior compartment. So that's why the name is Flexor digitorum profundus. And its nerve supply, we know this is the very exception because it has the dual nerve supply. Okay, its medial part will be supplied by the ulnar nerve, and its lateral part will be supplied by the median nerve. Okay, so this medial part is supplied by the ulnar nerve, and this lateral part is supplied by the median nerve. Then let's go to the action of the flexor digitorum profundus. The flexor digitorum profundus, look at that. It is going over the wrist joint, so it will definitely causes flexion of the wrist joint. And look at that, it is going over the distal interphalangeal joint, so it will definitely causes flexion of the distal interphalangeal joint. So it will causes flexion of the wrist joint, and flexion of the distal interphalangeal joint, and it will also causes flexion of the bones of the fingers. Then our next muscle is the flexor pollicis longus. Flexor pollicis longus. Okay, so it is originating from the upper 2/3 of the anterior surface of the radius below the oblique line. Okay, below the oblique line in the upper 2/3 of the anterior surface of the radius, and partly take from the interosseous membrane, and then ultimately inserted on the base of the distal phalanges of the thumb. You know, the pollicis, this term means thumb, so that's why this muscle is inserted on the distal phalanx of the thumb. So what is the nerve supply? It will be supplied by the median nerve, obviously, and what will be the action? It will cause the flexion of the flexions of the proximal phalanx and distal phalanx at the thumb. On the lower 1/4 of the anterior surface of the ulna, and it is inserted on the radius bone, that is the lower 1/4 of the anterior surface of the radius, that means from ulna to radius. And what is the nerve supply? It is supplied by the anterior interosseous nerve, and this is actually a branch of the median nerve, so we can see it is also supplied by the median nerve. And the action, the pronator quadratus, the name says its identification. Pronator quadratus, the pronator means pronation, so it will helps in pronation of the forearm. That is all about the muscles of the front of the forearm. So you have to know the origin, insertion, nerve supply, and action, and as well as you have to know the course of some important vessels and nerves, that is the radial artery and radial nerve, ulnar artery and ulnar nerve,